Its leathery wings spread out, tattooed in arcane symbols of cultures long wiped out. Its clawed feet pad the linoleum, each step leaving a black scorch mark that stinks of brimstone. Steaming drool drips from the creature's burning tusks, nestled in concentric circles beneath its glowing, blood-red eyes. Its terrible gaze has already locked onto its prey, its quarry, and nothing will possibly deter it from getting what it wants. Fair trade organic bananas, 25% off.
What a steal.
The college student awakens in his trash dorm after another night of debauchery. His head is swimming. His tongue feels like sandpaper. The room is littered with empty cans, solo cups, and bottles, and his roommate is still out cold next to him, having had his face graffitied by some jokester with a black marker. But the college student isn't thinking about the night before, not that he could remember any of it anyway. He's thinking about his rumbling stomach. He needs to get some food and a drink in him or else he's going to feel terrible all day. He knows exactly what he needs: a bacon omelet and a tall, cool glass of OJ, the breakfast of champions. There's only one problem. When the college student checks the communal fridge, he sees that there is no orange juice and no eggs. That's when a flood of memories washes over him, less like a cool, refreshing sea breeze and more like being waterboarded. The previous night, he and his idiot friends had made that delicious, life-saving orange juice disappear into a series of screwdrivers, and in their altered state, they'd thrown all the eggs at each other. Man, he thinks, this is embarrassing. I've really got to get my act together. But before he can get any sweeping life changes put in place, he still needs to solve the breakfast conundrum: bacon omelet and a tall glass of OJ or bust. He throws on a light jacket, puts on his shoes, makes sure his roommate is lying on his side just to be safe, and heads out into town. That's where he'll find the means to make his breakfast dreams a reality. On his omelet Odyssey, the college student passes a few of the local boutique cafes. They probably have what he needs, but on a student's budget, especially considering the money he probably blew on the previous night's rager. He thinks it's more economical to just buy the ingredients and make the breakfast himself. His mom and dad had always told him that college was about building life skills, after all. But that's when a second problem presents itself. For some reason, every grocery store or supermarket he passes seems to be closed. What gives? Is it some kind of national holiday that had somehow slipped his mind? As his hungover head pounds like someone installed a tiny construction worker with a pneumatic drill inside his brain, the hopelessness of this whole situation is beginning to dawn on him. Is he doomed to an omelet-free hell of his own making, just for the crime of wanting to have fun on a Saturday night? Life can be so cruel sometimes. But in the college student's lowest moment, a glimmer of hope presents itself. It seems he's absent-mindedly wandered off the beaten track, far closer to the edge of town than he'd intended to go. And while he's there, he spots what could be his salvation. But before we go any further, I have a question for you. Does something feel wrong with you? Is something interfering with your happiness or preventing you from achieving your goals? Regardless if you have a clinical mental health issue like depression or anxiety, or if you're just a human who lives in this world who's going through a hard time, therapy can give you tools to approach your life in a very different way. And that's why I'm excited to tell you about today's sponsor, BetterHelp. BetterHelp's mission is to make therapy more affordable and more accessible, and this is an important mission because finding a therapist can be really hard, especially when you're limited to the options in your area. BetterHelp is a platform that makes finding a therapist easier because it's online, it's remote, and by filling out a few questions, BetterHelp can match you to a professional therapist in as little as a few days. It's easy to sign up and get matched with a therapist. There's a link in my description. It's betterhelp.com/DrBob. Clicking that link helps support this channel, but it also gets you 10% off your first month of BetterHelp, so you can connect with a therapist and see if it helps you. And because finding a therapist is a little like dating, if you don't really fit with that therapist, which is a common thing with therapy, you can easily switch to a new therapist at no additional cost, without stressing about insurance, who's in your network, or anything like that. So if you're struggling, consider online therapy with BetterHelp. Click the link in the description or visit betterhelp.com/DrBob. Thank you again, BetterHelp, for supporting this channel. And now, back to our hungover college student. It looks like a store, an honest-to-goodness supermarket, with the sign above the entrance reading, Babylon's. With a newly formed spring in his step, the college student makes a beeline. He can taste that hearty omelet and dose of vitamin C already. Once inside, the college student wastes no time looking for his eggs and OJ. Nothing about the store seems particularly strange until he ends up face-to-face with one of the people working there. Typically, he's used to seeing people his age or even younger working as store assistants. The man he's staring at has got to be in his mid-40s, and despite his somewhat dweeby uniform, he's one of the most intimidating people the college student has ever seen. His large, muscular arms bulge out of the baby blue uniform shirt, covered in what looks like intimidating gang tats. The man's head is completely shaved, with a long scar underneath one eye and a series of teardrop tattoos under the other. The college student can't help but think, holy hell, have they started hiring death row inmates here? Strangely, this incredibly scary man looks more nervous to see the college student in here. Like having a customer in the store was a scenario they somehow hadn't covered in the employee training manual. The college student politely insists that he won't need any help. He's just here for eggs and a carton of orange juice. As he walks further into the store, the college student can't help but realize that the strange man isn't an outlier. Anytime he sees an employee of the store, they're a large, beefy man covered in tattoos who looks like he should be doing 25 to life in San Quentin. He's wondering if maybe the store is getting a tax break for hiring ex-cons when he sees something strange down the aisle in front of him, loitering in the refrigerated section. It's mist, but not the kind of dispersed mist you see out in the world. It's more like a solid column of mist. If the college student didn't know any better, he might have even thought that the column of mist was oddly humanoid. But he blinks and the mist is gone. So maybe it was just some strange product of his hungover imagination. He thinks, man, I hope I didn't party so hard I gave myself brain damage. He continues his egg quest, undeterred by the strangeness that he's seen so far. But another problem seems to be presenting itself. All of the products here are a little strange and unfamiliar. Without even trying, he's somehow found himself in the candy section, and despite having a youthful sweet tooth, he doesn't recognize any of the brands around him. One that catches his eye is a ghost-shaped candy labeled Candied Souls, which he thinks to be a strangely morbid name. He gives the candy a light squish to see if it's gummy or a hard candy, but when he does, it lets out an almost imperceptible, ghostly wail. The noise is still enough to shock the college student into dropping it. The candied soul falls to the ground, where it bounces once and then comes to rest. He looks up to the section on the shelf he'd picked it up from, and to his astonishment, a new one appears to replace the other one, right before his eyes. It just materializes out of thin air. Impossible. Before the college student's mind can even process all the implications of the thing he's just seen, he turns to see an immense being entering the aisle next to him, shaking the ground with each footstep. It's easily 7 or 8 feet tall, with leathery, dragon-like skin and long, twisted horns emerging out of its skull. The monster lumbers, its tail whipping with excitement, its fangs borne. The monster speaks in a deep, rumbling voice like a volcano preparing to erupt.
Oh, they've got a special on candied souls. It's my lucky day.
Without a moment's hesitation, the college student screams and runs in the opposite direction. There's a monster in the store, a demon, something straight out of hell. And even though the demon doesn't seem to be behaving aggressively, in fact, it's downright confused as to why the college student decided to scream and run, the college student is racked with mortal fear. Screw the orange juice, screw the omelet, he needs to get out of here before he's turned into breakfast. In fear's grasp, he isn't thinking logically. He's just running around the store in incoherent terror, trying not to be caught by beings that aren't even chasing him. Strangely, he does notice out of the corner of his eye that the staff aren't freaking out. They're acting like the freakish creature in the store is perfectly normal, just another run-of-the-mill customer. This place is clearly completely insane. On the way to the exit, the college student finds himself frozen at the front windows, staring out at the madness occurring in the parking lot. A series of cars have pulled up on the asphalt as the doors of the cars open, and a menagerie of nightmarish impossibilities pour out. Gooey insectoid beasts with a horrifying number of legs. Long, coiling snake-like entities covered in thorns. Beasts made entirely of blood-colored slime. Winged horrors covered in eyes. So many things beyond description. The college student's mind can barely process what he's seeing. While he's got hell amassing in front of him, the college student has no idea that heaven is getting closer and closer behind. He feels a strange warmth, unlike anything he's ever experienced, spreading across his back. A voice that seems to speak straight to his soul says, "Excuse me." When the college student sees the creature standing behind him, his eyes begin to water in pure reverence. It's a being torn out of the most ancient scriptures, almost impossible for the brain to comprehend. A series of spinning golden rings, covered in eyes of every color, wreathed in fire, and topped by a number of floating crowns. Behind it, 6 wings as pure and white as untouched snow beat magnificently. Any thought of eggs or orange juice is wiped from the college student's mind by the mere sight of it before him.
"Be not afraid,"
the angelic creature says.
"I was just wondering if you knew where I could find some toilet paper in here."
The college student isn't interested in telling the impossible creature where it can find the toilet paper. He just wants to get out of this store. He just wants to survive. If he gets out of here alive, he swears he'll never party again. In a moment of lucidity, he sees the exit and runs for it, knowing this might be his only chance to survive the morning. He runs, trying to purge the angelic splendor from his eyes. When his feet hit the blacktop outside, he knows he's got a chance, even if the parking lot is full of demons and heavenly beings. But he doesn't expect to see a number of black tactical vehicles screech into the parking lot as men in suits and sunglasses pour out of the vehicles. They don't seem like they're here to help. They seem like they're here to get him. The college student does his best to frantically explain himself. "Wait, please, I just wanted some eggs and OJ! I just wanted some eggs and OJ!" But his protests are cut off when one of the men gets him in a headlock and forces a rag covered in chloroform over his face. Darkness falls. When the college student wakes up, he's in his dorm room again, surrounded by the same trash and the same graffitied sleeping roommate. He has no memories of the events that transpired before. All he knows is that he's hungry and thirsty. He drags himself up off the ground, head pounding, and schleps his way over to the fridge. An omelet and a glass of orange juice sound good right about now. And lucky for him, when he opens his fridge, a carton of eggs and a carton of orange juice are both waiting for him, though he's not sure why he bought the OJ with pulp. This is hardly a normal retail experience, unless you find yourself shopping at SCP-2854, also codenamed the Little Shop Mart of Horrors, though it's best known to its customers as Babylons. To the untrained eye, it appears to be an abandoned supermarket located 3 kilometers from Foundation Containment Site 118, but to those with the proper clearances, it's known to be a bizarre menagerie of anomalous phenomena. During the anomalous supermarket's business hours, cars will appear in the parking lot, delivering instances of the entities known as SCP-2854-1. These entities can manifest in a variety of forms, some of which we still haven't received full documentation on, but here are some of the primary documented forms. First, the incorporeal forms. One of them is a form with visible eyes wrapped in long lengths of intangible chains. The others are mist-like creatures with no discernible facial features. The corporeal beings are considerably more intimidating to look at. These include angelic entities, in the biblically accurate sense, with many wings and eyes, and their counterparts, large entities that appear consistent with the multiplicity of demons described in Christian mythology. In terms of general layout, Babylon's is not dissimilar to your typical small independent supermarket. There are checkout lanes, a stock room, and multiple aisles of products. I imagine you're probably wondering what kind of products they sell at Babylon's, and lucky for you, we have some declassified files on that too. One available confectionery product is a candy labeled Candied Souls, a gummy shaped like a cartoon ghost, packaged in pink wrapping paper. They also sell eggs holding tridents, producing flame from an unknown source in an airtight red container adorned with pentagrams. They're labeled deviled eggs. For those with more carnivorous tastes, there are hot dogs with 3 separate cylindrical-shaped heads that each bark independently of each other, wrapped in a plastic container labeled Demon Dogs. And of course, there is green-colored bread in the shape of humanoid entities undergoing an advanced state of decomposition, wrapped in a plastic container labeled Unbread. Very cute, I'm sure you'll agree. When the products are removed from the shelves, they will regenerate automatically, with the speed of their regeneration depending on the level of demand for the product in the store. The longest interval for regeneration is 30 minutes. The shortest is 1 second. Where the products come from is still a mystery. The currency that the SCP-2854-1 entities pay for the products with is also unidentified. It's paper currency written in an unknown script with a picture of a gnome on it. Once the products have been purchased, the entities will return to their card and demanifest. A perfectly reasonable transaction, in a manner of speaking. The Foundation was doing an admirable job keeping this anomaly contained, but like many small businesses, Babylon soon found its clientele being poached by the local Walmart. This was the cause of the currently most conspicuous containment breach, Incident 2854-A. 2 instances of SCP-2854-1, which the Foundation has since learned were named Gregory and Alma, manifested outside the anomalous store, only to find that it was closed and devoid of personnel. The 2 impossible entities returned to their car and disappeared before appearing at a Walmart in Wilmington, North Carolina, for some late-night shopping. As Gregory and Alma entered the store, audio and video were recorded by the in-store CCTV cameras, and an immediate look of terror was plastered across the faces of everyone in their proximity. Gregory walked forward, trying to get a sense of the store's layout while scratching his head with long claws. He murmured out in a deep, demonic voice,
This sucks. Babylon's was closed, and now we're forced to go to a different supermarket. I hope that we don't have to do this on a daily basis.
Alma, who trailed not far behind him, said,
Well, maybe we'll get lucky, and Babylon's will be open later. We can always go back to check. You don't have to go here if you don't want to.
Gregory grumbled.
Nah, we already walked in the door. We have a commitment to shop here now. Hey, there's an employee. Maybe he can help us.
The employee was turned in the opposite direction, doing a listless stocktake on a ratty old clipboard as the 2 entities approached. Gregory politely asked where they could find the organic produce section. They were from out of town and had never visited a Walmart. Just as the employee was mindlessly droning out that the organic produce could be found on aisle 4, he turned and saw who, or what, he was actually talking to. His eyes teared up despite himself. His legs began to tremble. It was impossible. He had to be seeing things, but he wasn't. He clenched his jaw and braced for death, but instead, he got a jolt of energy. He turned and ran, screaming that there were monsters in the store. Gregory and Alma gave chase, still confused about where to find the organic produce they'd come in looking for. As they called for the employee to slow down, he just screamed louder and made a beeline for the exit, followed by a stampede of panicked customers. Gregory grimaced, confused, and muttered,
Well, crap. The customer service here is terrible.
Guess whose idea it was to shop here, Gregory?
quipped Alma.
Oh, shut up, Alma. We'll find it on our own.
As Alma and Gregory split up to explore the store, hoping the organic produce revealed itself, a night guard frantically called the police, ranting and raving about actual monsters having invaded the store. This was only going to make the chaos worse, as 3 different groups were alerted by the call: the local Wilmington Police, the SCP Foundation, and the Unusual Incidents Unit. For those not aware, the Unusual Incidents Unit is one of the more obscure and ineffectual groups of interest that the SCP Foundation occasionally both collaborates and clashes with. They're the anomalous department of the FBI, investigating cases of an unusual nature. They're highly understaffed, underfunded, and under-equipped compared to the SCP Foundation, and even the Global Occult Coalition. Most of the time, they inconvenience the Foundation by getting under their feet during important investigations. This was yet another one of these instances. Soon enough, a blockade of UIU agents and standard, non-anomalous police were marshaled around the Walmart, yelling over a loudspeaker for Gregory and Alma to come out and surrender. Naturally, this made them start bickering again.
Guess our shopping trip attracted more attention than we thought.
What was your first clue? The panicking customers? Maybe the cashier that thought we were psychos? Wow, how could you possibly figure that out, Gregory? You must be a genius or something.
Oh, just shut up, Alma. That attitude of yours is getting on my last goddamn nerve. Let's just go, okay? They're not going to let us leave peacefully anyway.
Gregory and Alma exited Walmart, at which point they were mobbed and apprehended by the UIU agents. at which point the SCP Foundation arrived to take over the situation. They contained Gregory and Alma harmlessly in Type 3 spectral mutagen allocators. Everyone in attendance was amnesticized and then released, all no thanks to the UIU. Since Incident 2854-A was documented, the Foundation has classified SCP-2854 as EUCLID and modified its containment procedures accordingly. The Foundation purchased the land on which the seemingly abandoned store is located and erected a 2-meter-tall chain-link fence around the perimeter. The store is staffed by a rotating collection of D-Class and undercover Foundation agents, who are to remain up to date on the placement of products within the store so as to better assist the SCP-2854-1 instances. Satisfied customers are less likely to shop elsewhere, after all. The embedded personnel take an active role in the containment of SCP-2854-1 instances within a 5-mile radius of SCP-2854. Anyone who requests a transfer will be given a complimentary course of Class A amnestics to ensure that they won't carry any of the memories to their next assignment. I imagine most people working in retail wish that their employers had similar procedures. As a regular patron of my own local corner store, I can confirm that trying to find reasonable prices these days is its own special circle in the Inferno. But as long as we don't find ourselves wandering the Isles of Babylons, then perhaps we could all be doing a lot worse. Check out the DrBob Patreon and become a junior researcher today. Now go and watch another entry from the files of DrBob, like SCP-4703, the Anomalous Superstore, perfectly legal.